The idea blended Egyptian culture and ancient alien concepts with interplanetary adventure. Studios didn't get it. Producers didn't like the pacing. The first test screening did not go well, but when the film finally reached theaters, it was a hit, spawning a franchise that would go on for years and consist of multiple novels and television shows. Now, we're going back to the beginning to find out what happened to Stargate. Filmmaker Roland Emmerich was fascinated with Egyptian culture and architecture. While in film school, he had an idea for a story about the discovery of a spaceship buried under the Great Pyramid. The revelation that ancient Egyptians were influenced by alien visitors. The story was too big and expensive to bring to the screen at that time, so Emmerich set it aside. When he was working on his fourth feature film, the sci-fi thriller Moon 44, he met Dean Devlin, a cast member who rewrote his own dialogue. Devlin also had a story idea that he had been pondering. He described it as Lawrence of Arabia in space. A hero chases a villain through a wormhole, landing on another world years apart from each other, and in the time between their arrivals, the villain has taken control of the planet. Emmerich and Devlin decided to combine their ideas, and they took conceptual artist Oliver Scholl's suggestion that a transportation device be at the center of it all. That's how they came up with Stargate. The director of the action film Universal Soldier had dropped out at the 11th hour. Emmerich was then chosen to be the replacement director, and he brought Devlin onto the project with him, rewriting the screenplay. Executive producer Mario Kassar was impressed with their work and wanted to make another film with them, so they brought him the idea of Stargate. And since he was an Egyptian art enthusiast, he found it pretty appealing, and so he agreed to come on board as an executive producer. Hollywood studio execs just did not get it.
Don't you get it?
And felt that it would be way too expensive, likely to require a budget of $100 million. Emmerich said that he could get it done for half that, but they just didn't believe him. They didn't understand that this was an homage to old-school adventure films and classic sci-fi movies. It wasn't an action movie or a creature feature, and it didn't feature the description that studios hoped for, of being like Indiana Jones mixed with Star Wars. It was an adventure film with a large scope, and would need thousands of extras and some very large sets. As Devlin explained to Cinefantastique magazine, we didn't go for the obligatory action scene every 10 minutes. We stayed true to our goal, which was to make something unique and original. There is action, but this film is much more of an adventure than an action film, which scared a lot of people. Emmerich added, "We wanted to create this great grand journey. And that's very unusual these days when everyone counts the minutes of action in a movie." Finally, they found someone who understood what they were going for. The head of the French production company, Le Studio Canal Plus, agreed to provide a budget of around $50 million.
$50 million? And who you think you kidnapped, Chelsea Clinton?
Starlight got the green light and was given a long pre-production period, allowing the team that Emmerich assembled, including production designer Holger Gross and special effects supervisor Kit West, plenty of prep time. Thanks to the concept artists, the entire movie was visualized on paper well before filming began. The story that Emmerich and Devlin crafted for Stargate tells us that alien beings were visiting Egypt thousands of years ago, an expedition from a dying world led by an alien being whose species was going extinct. He was searching for a way to cheat death, and found it by possessing the body of a young Egyptian. He appointed himself ruler and enslaved the locals to transport people and things back and forth between Earth and his homeworld of Abydos. He set up the Stargate, sending slaves to Abydos to mine the mineral that's the building block of his technology, allowing him to achieve eternal life. But there was an uprising on Earth. The Egyptians tore down the Stargate and buried it, and the aliens never returned, but they left their mark on Egyptian culture. The lead alien is what we know as the sun god Ra. Anubis and Horus were his personal guards, who look like the drawings of the ancient Egyptian gods due to the high-tech helmets that they wear. In 1928, an archaeologist unearthed the Stargate, But it's not until present day, that's 1994 for this, that an Egyptologist named Daniel Jackson manages to decode the writing on the Stargate and figures out how to reactivate it. The US Air Force sends a team led by Colonel Jack O'Neill through the Stargate wormhole on a recon mission, and Daniel joins them so that he can decipher the writing on the Stargate at the other end, and dial it in so that they can return home. It's kept a secret that O'Neill has taken a nuclear bomb with them, and has been ordered to set it off to destroy the gate on the other side, if there's any sign of trouble. Of course, there is trouble. Not only does the recon team cross paths with the descendants of the Egyptians who were taken to Abydos long ago, they also find that Ra is still ruling over them, and he wants to send that nuke, enhanced with alien mineral, right back to Earth. Kurt Russell was at the top of the wish list to play Jack O'Neill, but he turned down the role repeatedly. Rather than give up, the filmmakers kept offering him more and more money. Eventually, they reached a price that Russell just couldn't refuse: $7 million. He agreed to take the part, even though he didn't like the script, and thought that it would be a really stupid movie. Regardless of his personal feelings, he would commit to the project 1000%, since they were paying him so much money. Then Emmerich and Devlin realized that he had accidentally been sent the first draft, which was supposed to go out to nobody. Once Russell read the polished shooting script, he figured the movie might not be so bad after all. Another actor who didn't like the script was James Spader, but in his case, that worked to the film's benefit. Spader signed on to play Daniel Jackson, and when Entertainment Weekly asked why he was drawn to Stargate, he told them, "The script was just awful, and that sort of intrigued me." Once he was on set, he seemed to regret his decision. He was always asking about his character's motivation, and would often question Emmerich's direction. He seemed to be embarrassed to be working on the movie, and one day he refused to come out of his trailer until his scenes were rewritten. Ra was originally envisioned as an exceptionally old man, since he's been around for more than 10,000 years. But creature effects designer Patrick Tatopoulos drew him as an androgynous youth in one piece of concept art, and Kassar latched onto that interpretation. He liked the contrast between the character's actual age and his physical look. He offered the role to Jay Davidson, who had just caught attention with his performance in The Crying Game.
It's funny the way things go. Don't you find that, Jimmy? Never the way you expected.
But Davidson wasn't particularly interested in being in Stargate or in continuing his acting career at all, but he didn't want to just turn the offer down. So he asked for a payday that he figured the filmmakers would see as an unacceptable demand: $1 million. But to his surprise, they paid him, and he became Ra. Vivica Linford was cast as Dr. Catherine Langford, whose father discovered the Stargate. Military characters are played by Leon Rippey, John Deal, and French Stewart, with Ray Allen and Richard Kind showing up as researchers. Carlos Lacau and Jaimin Hansu also even show up as a couple of Ra's guards. Those who live on Abydos speak an actual ancient Egyptian language that was constructed by Dr. Stuart Tyson Smith. The decision was made to only subtitle this language when the outside characters understand what's being said, or if the conversation is between locals. If the visitors from Earth don't understand what the Abydos people are saying, the audience isn't shown the subtitles. Even though this visit from Earth led to an uprising on Abydos, Emmerich and Devlin didn't want to have the visitors save the locals. As they said, they speak their own language, have their own culture, and in the end, it's their own actions that free them. On the desert planet, there are large animals called mastages. These creatures were usually brought to life by putting costumes on horses, but for a scene where a mastage runs across the sand dunes, dragging Daniel behind it, that was a dog in a mastage costume, and it was dragging an action figure. Stargate was filmed in the scorching heat of Yuma, Arizona, with the extravagant sets constructed in an airplane hangar in Long Beach, California. Emmerich got the thousands of extras that he wanted, and a crew of 450. Unfortunately, when the film was cut together, Kassar wasn't satisfied. He felt the pacing was just too slow. He suggested cutting out all of the character details, including the information that O'Neill is willing to go on a nuclear suicide mission because he's mourning the accidental death of his own son. This shorter, quicker version of the movie was shown to a test audience, and it was a disaster. Emmerich figured that if the movie was going to be a failure anyway, he may as well put the character storylines back in. And he was pleased to find that the longer cut tested better. It allowed the audience to be more engaged with the characters, so they didn't mind that the movie takes its time getting to raw and the action. A distribution deal was secured with MGM, and when the film was released in October of 1994, it was a surprise hit, pulling in almost $200 million at the box office. Emmerich and Devlin thought they'd have the chance to make sequels even. They imagined a trilogy, with the Stargate taking the characters to different locations. But it just wasn't meant to be. MGM decided to make a TV series instead.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our Joe Blow channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
That show, Stargate SG-1, started airing in 1997 and ran for 10 seasons. There was also a 5-season spin-off called Stargate Atlantis, a 2-season show called Stargate Universe, the web series Stargate Origins, a couple of TV movies, and a short-lived animated series titled Stargate Infinity. And Emmerich and Devlin had nothing to do with any of them. Although Devlin did give his blessing to some of the many Stargate novels that were written. When the shows came to an end, Emmerich and Devlin attempted to reboot the property. They wanted to get their trilogy made, but it didn't work out. They ran into rights issues, so they gave up and walked away from it. MGM, now owned by Amazon, still intends to bring more Stargate into the world, but unfortunately, Emmerich doesn't have any interest in being involved. It's a shame that the original creators of the idea never got to tell the full story that they had in mind. But Emmerich and Devlin were able to make Stargate exactly how they wanted to make it, and it turned out to be a success. That's a major victory. And the result was a sci-fi adventure film that still has a huge following even decades later. In the end, even James Spader was won over by it. And we all know what a tough customer he is.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. Joe Blow was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.